This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 704, Roots versus Wings, Considering Homeownership, by J.L. Collins of jlcollinsnh.com. And I am Dan, the guy who is here every weekday reading to you from some of the best blogs on personal finance. And don't forget that we give away books to random people on our mailing list. So you're going to want to be on that list if you are not already, and now is a great time to join. Simply come by oldpodcast.com to be a part of that. For now, let's get right to our post as we optimize your life. Roots versus Wings, Considering Homeownership, by J.L. Collins of jlcollinsnh.com. Sold now hangs below the real estate sign in front of our house. All the contingencies have been cleared, and it should be smooth sailing until the closing date about a month from now. In the next few weeks, we'll be going through the myriad of chores involved: packing, finding a mover, switching services, dropping our homeowner's insurance, picking up renter's insurance, and selling stuff on Craigslist. That last one is an adventure worthy of its own post. Maybe with the money we raise, we'll even buy a new mattress. The other day, a lovely young couple stopped by to pick up a variety of garden tools we're unloading. They were very excited as they just bought their first house. It is, as she described it, a fixer-upper, and they got it in a short sale. They're happy with the deal and busy shopping garage sales and Craigslist for all the stuff they're going to need. She can't wait to put in a garden. They're putting down roots. I've owned this house we've now sold for 13 years, the one before it for 15 years. That's 28 years of home ownership for a guy who really doesn't much like owning houses. As houses usually are when you run the numbers, they were lousy investments, but I've no regrets. They've served their purpose both as a place to raise our daughter in a great school district and just because we wanted the ownership lifestyle at the time. Critical to making this work was that in both cases, we bought far less house than the world of real estate agents and lenders told us we could, 1/2 to 2/3 less. Given the reaction of these professionals, we may have been the only people in human history not to have bought the absolute maximum house we could afford. Now we are on the verge of returning to the blissful, carefree, unencumbered life of renting. Instantly, we'll have far more flexibility and far more mobility. We are spreading our wings. Roots and Wings. Many years ago, when our daughter was still young, I read or was told that good parenting boiled down to giving kids roots and wings. Made sense to me then, still does. She's just a couple of weeks shy of her 21st birthday now and has already traveled to almost as many countries and continents as I. At the moment, she's in France completing her junior year of college. While there, and part of the point of going, she's seen a fair amount of Europe. She's just back from a weekend in Geneva. At the end of April, we'll head over to spend a week with her in Prague. Clearly, we've done well on the wings side of things, and our close family relationship provides the roots. But she'll never really have the old family homestead sort of roots. We are more wing-type people. The whole rent versus own financial conversation tends to generate very strong and very emotional reactions. And that always seemed a bit odd to me. It is, after all, exceedingly simple to run the numbers and see which is the more financially prudent course in any given case. From there, you'll know if your preference will cost or save you money. If it saves, you need only celebrate and do what you wanted anyway. If it is going to cost, you are able to decide if you want to spend the extra money your living preferences require. In our case, the numbers always pointed to renting as the better financial path. Right now, that's a beautiful thing. We get what we want and it costs us less. But even when what we wanted was a house that cost more, that was fine. What was critical at the time was understanding how much more that buying choice would cost. It was that understanding that led to us always buying less house than we could afford, and that, in turn, made for a far more comfortable homeownership experience. Not being privy to the numbers, I have no way of knowing if the young couple who bought my tools have made the best financial choice. But what is clear is that they are very excited about putting down roots. They certainly have made the best emotional choice. That being the case, and assuming they've not spread themselves too thin, even if the house costs more over time, they will have made the right choice. Life choices are not always about the money, but you should always be clear about the money choice you are making. Anthropologists tell us that we humans, Homo sapiens, have been running around the planet for just about 200,000 years, and that we have been behaviorally modern for the last 50,000 or so. For the vast majority of that time, we were nomadic hunter-gatherers, more wings than roots. But then, some 10,000 years ago, something very profound changed. After 190,000 years of roaming around, we began farming. We began settling down. We began building cities. We began to go to war over territory. We began to put down roots. Why this occurred is the subject of much debate and research, but nobody really knows. But occur it clearly did. It has become hardwired in our historical myths and stories. Abel versus Cain, hunters versus farmers, nomads versus settlers, own versus rent. Did Abel versus Cain sound odd to your ear just now? It does to mine. Cain versus Abel is how I've always heard it. The farmer is named first. The farmer survived and reproduced. The hunter is killed off. The West is settled. The nomads exterminated or rounded up. Hunter-gatherers teeter on the brink of extinction. No wonder this debate is so emotionally charged. Our biases are showing. They are even written into our tax code. Mortgage interest and real estate taxes are deductible. Homeownership is a national good and as such is rewarded. It's worth noting that both these deductions and the very concept of mortgages being widely available grew out of the Great Depression. It was a time of dangerous unrest. The fact that a settled population is more docile was not lost on the policymakers of the day. We might also look at this as expansiveness versus efficiency. Personally, we fall on the side of efficiency. We like owning exactly what we want, need, and value, and not a single thing else. The apartment we'll be moving to has a bit more than a third of the space we are leaving. It is exactly what we need and not a square foot more, maybe even a few square feet less. But I'd rather pare down to fit. The problem with houses is that even for people like us, there is the relentless tendency to expand to fill them. For those who value expansiveness, that's just one of their charms. The far side of expansiveness can be found on the TV show American Pickers. If you haven't seen it, the program follows two guys who drive around the country looking for old things they can buy and resell at a profit in their stores. They seek out places filled to the rafters and across the fields with junk that owners have collected, most often for decades. The people who own these places and all this are the pinnacles of the expansiveness motif. Once the house is filled, the barn is next, then the outbuildings, fields, and trailers they've hauled onto their land to hold still more. It is hard to imagine a more different mindset than my own, and that's likely what makes it endlessly fascinating to me. Well, that and the idea of buying low and selling high, of course. The beauty of our lives is the endless variety of how we can choose to live them. The point of this blog is fundamentally to discuss how and why to accumulate FU money and the freedom it provides in making those choices. Roots or wings? The choice is yours, but as with everything you choose to buy, be sure you take the time to know what it will cost. You just listened to the post titled Roots versus Wings, Considering Homeownership by J.L. Collins of jlcollinsnh.com. And there are some addendums to that post that are definitely worth checking out. You can always find links to these articles in this episode's description in your podcast app or at oldpodcast.com. Also, another quick reminder that we do book giveaways to random people on our weekly newsletter mailing list, and to be a part of those drawings, come by oldpodcast.com and simply join the mailing list. And that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for being here and have a great rest of your day. I will, of course, be back with you tomorrow. That's the Friday show, where your optimal life awaits.
Hello, Life Optimizer. This is Justin Malik, creator and producer of this podcast, but also Optimal Living Daily, the show where I read to you from even more blogs covering finance, productivity, minimalism, personal development, and more from incredible bloggers like Derek Sivers, Zen Habits, Mark and Angel, The Minimalists, and all the ones you hear on this show too. So if you enjoyed today's episode and like taking amazing blogs on the go, come on over to Optimal Living Daily and subscribe to that one too. And together, we'll start optimizing your life.
You've been listening to Optimal Finance Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode and head to oldpodcast.com. That's OLDpodcast.com for a free gift as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.